So when you look at an economy that's creating 2.2 revenue, that's 100 years to pay off what we already owe. And neither party will acknowledge that this is debt also. We've had several people in the last year declare that this 15 trillion is what is putting our entire society at risk, that we are in desperate risk of the entire economy failing, and it's the 15. If the 15 puts us there, just think about the 202. So we've got major troubles ahead of us. Okay, I'm going to go way up to the top, and I promised you I'll come to you, and I'm going to come right over here.
Since I got the mic, can I ask a question?
No, I mean, you didn't raise your hand. You can raise your hand on next time, all right?
I think
Okay, so
I
maybe
think
now
this is
one.
one everybody would enjoy.
All right.
On August 2nd, debt ceiling's gonna get hit. Who's gonna get paid when it hits and who doesn't?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation about that. The debt ceiling is, I have 15 here, it's actually rounded up. It's actually 14.3, and we're very close to that point right now. And so what the deal is, if you hit a debt ceiling in your personal life, then your banker tells you no more. We in politics have to restrict ourselves, so there's an actual law that says we can't go above the 14.3. We do hit that somewhere in August. And my position has always been that we have to cut, this number has to fix. We just can't go on extending this number indefinitely because we're already at risk. The debt is threatening to sink our economy. So again, my point to our leadership, they asked me, what will you vote for clean debt ceiling? That was last week. By the way, when Washington used the word, you should reverse the polarity. If they say it's a clean debt ceiling vote, know that it's an unclean debt ceiling vote. That was anything but clean. But what they didn't want is any entanglements. They didn't want any reform, no spending cuts. And even the Democrats, there are only about 25 total people voted for that so-called clean debt ceiling last week. Then the president called down the first Republicans to the White House, and we got to talk, and then he called the Democrats down the next day. But that's the discussion that's going on right now. So my leadership is talking to each one of us saying, what's going to take for you personally? I'm saying it's going to take basically three things. We have to come up with significant cuts here, and I'm thinking dollar for dollar of an extension. If we increase that by $1 trillion, we should find $1 trillion worth of future costs that we pull out. Then secondly, we have to grow jobs here. Let's grow the economy. Let's stop the things that are killing jobs. And I've suggested we start cutting timber in our forest would be a good way to put jobs back on. Yep. We stop importing from Canada, create our own jobs, use our own timber, whatever. I don't advocate clear cutting. So number one, cut spending. Number two, grow jobs. But then we need structural reform. If we just cut spending, they can go up on spending tomorrow afternoon. They can cut it today and go up tomorrow. So I don't trust us, the body in Washington, to live with that discipline. So I want structural reform, a balanced budget, a cap on the spending so that it matches. I want to go back to that previous chart, but so that we're somewhere close to this figure here. In economies that begin to spend much more than 21%, always will struggle with stagnation. The Soviet economy was a good example. So anyway, those are my three requirements on the debt ceiling. Okay, one.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Hold it right up and speak a little bit louder and clearer. Lucy 130 is way too long.
All righty. My name is Cynthia. I'm from Las Cruces here. And for the past 35 years, I've been working, volunteered for my country for a couple of years, and then I've been working for the public good for the last 30 years. My concern today is the promise to me and my fellow Americans of Medicare when I turn 65 and an old person, that I will, or an older person, thank you. All right, when I'm an older lady, that...
Got a little personal there.
My point is that I've been counting on Medicare and not the cuts in Medicare. I agree with the cuts in spending. We need to cut spending and cut spending. My question is, when we look for spending, we do, and you voted with many in the House to cut the middle class benefits, and at the simultaneous time to increase the wealth accumulation of the richest Americans. Over the past 30 years, the top 2% of Americans have been accumulating the greatest wealth in the country since the 1920s. Now, how do you justify cutting off my Medicare and all the other fellow Americans who are in their 50s and below, at the same time giving tax breaks to the richest 2% in this country?
Again, doesn't matter what we want to believe. I showed you the X's and O's, and if we're going to raise taxes, then we fall in the category of a failed economy. I can just tell you that. The second thing is that the plan.
Taxes on the very top. We're not talking about.
Don't interrupt! If you want me to answer your question, then I'll answer the question that you asked. If you don't want me to answer the question, then we'll go to someone else. I don't care.
Oh, no, please, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just telling you, I majored in economics. I made a live study in my business of economics. And I will tell you that if you could tax your way to a good economy, then Cuba would be there today. Cuba hasn't created jobs in decades. Germany had not created jobs in decades till they began to deal with their overspending. Now, the statement that we voted to cut your Medicare is simply untrue. The vote that was taken on the Ryan budget is exactly what President Clinton suggested in 1999. I have a copy of President Clinton's 99 program here, and it is exactly, it says the design of a premium support system, which is exactly what Paul Ryan said. And then the financing of the insolvency of Medicare. This is the program from 1999 that he suggested. Paul Ryan used that as a blueprint.
Well, I don't like that one either.
Don't interrupt! The main thing is, the Medicare spending, again, you are sitting here looking at, we're right here in 2011. Medicare spending is headed on this path. And if we don't do anything, your Medicare program is already dead. This is according to the CBO. The CBO this month said that it will be completely out of money in 9 years. Completely out of money in 9 years. If we do nothing, this is what's happening, and it is already in a failed state. It just hasn't reached there. It's in bankruptcy 9 years from now, and we simply have to decide if we're going to let it go or if we're not. Now, I'm not so wild about the Ryan plan, but it's the only plan in Washington. And I would ask any of you who disagree with the Ryan plan, that's good, and I appreciate that. But what plan are you referring to that you would support? Where is that plan? I don't see it in Washington.
I just said.
Nancy Pelosi has not created a plan.
2%, increase taxes on the top 2%.
Cut her off.
Again, we would simply disagree that tax increases are going to improve the economy. They simply are. Number two, yes, ma'am.
Another one.
Thank you. My name is Linda Mervine. I'm with Cafe Comunidades de Nacione de Fe, and we are working on the issue of foreclosure. This is a little different than the budget we've been talking about. And recently we became made aware of the emergency homeowners loan fund that has been available, and it was supposed to be available December 31st of last year. It's just now becoming available. And there's a very small window of opportunity until July 22nd for people to make application, to put their names in the lottery, to give them opportunity to possibly access those funds. So I am wondering how, Congressman Pearce, will your office cooperate with us to get that word out so that that window we best utilize to get the most people who can make applications?
We'll take a look at it. The problem with many of those, there were probably, I don't know exactly how many, several of the plans to give poor people money so they could make their house payments. And I voted to discontinue 3 or 4 of those because, again, the fraud was rampant. When you get a program with billions in it, again, you think about the little deals where you scratch off the inside of your Coke bottle cap and you're gonna win $1 million. You remember all those games? I'll just guarantee you, nobody in New Mexico is ever gonna win them. It's gonna be somebody in a big city, because they want the people in big cities to win. And so the same thing is happening with government programs. When they're scammed off, they go to big cities. We'll fight for our rights. I'll take a look at it, and I'm asking our staff, wherever the staff is, I'm asking if you get with him and write the exact program down. I will tell you if the CBO, if the Congressional Budget Office or the IG is telling us it's getting scammed, and will be, I will just tell you up front, I mean, I think you can tell about this time of day, I probably am not gonna hedge around and say something that I don't believe. So we'll tell you up or down, yes, we can support it all we want. If it's a clean program, we absolutely, I probably fight as hard as anybody in Washington, just because I grew up poor over in Nadine, and if you grow up in Nadine, you better fight to survive. So anyway, so yes.
Make sure it's
Okay,
going to
appreciate it.
citizens.
We'll take a look. Yes, I think you were 3. Oh, I'm sorry, you were 3. Yes, you're right. We'll go to another 3 here. We need, yeah.
Congressman Pearce, I want to thank you for your service to our country, sir. I'm Deborah White. I too am retired United States Air Force.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir. You're welcome. The first, I have 2 questions. The first one is, Boeing is trying to move into South Carolina because they're a right-to-work state.
Mhm.
The U.S. government is trying to keep them from doing that. Do you feel that this is a constitutional move?
It is, the NRLB should not be able to tell any business what they can and can't do. If the government knows how to run business, then let it fix the damn post office first. You know what's wrong with the post office? They compete with Federal Express, and Federal Express spends 43% of its money on salaries. They also compete with UPS, which spends 61% of its money on salaries. Do you know how much the Postal Service spends on salaries? 80%. 80%, that's the reason they can't make money. Today, they're paying over 1,000 people to sit in a room to do nothing all day long. They won't allow them to read, they won't allow them to look at books, they don't allow them to work on the computer. They have to sit in there by union law and get paid, and it's $50 million a year, because they don't have anything for them to do, but the union contract says you can't lay off anybody. That's the reason the Postal Service is not making money, they're losing volume, and that is continuing to go on. So these are the reasons that the government should not be telling any business where they can do business or not. This is supposed to be a free society, not a government-run society.
My second, I had 2 questions, sir.
One question.
No, you don't get it.
Oh, I don't?
No, you don't.
Darn.
I'm sorry, you're on the second question list. You got 1, 2, and 3. We'll just go in small. Let's go right here, and we'll get you second up here.
My name is Will Porter. I'm from Las Cruces. Looks like the answer is business. Why do we charge businesses anything? Because they're a faceless entity. Only people that pay taxes is people. And if we charge businesses 0, and anybody that takes anything out of that business gets to tax everything that they get, personally, that they don't give it from the least to the most in the business. Why do we charge businesses or corporations or small businesses or large businesses any taxes at all if we want to create jobs?
Yeah, economically, you're exactly right. And after the president gave a speech that he said, number 1, we need to get rid of every loophole. I don't mind getting rid of the loopholes. And then he said, and our taxes are too high. I said, why don't we do both at one time? Why don't we go to 0 taxes, then you have no loopholes, and the people end up, if say Divers charges you a tax, then you end up paying for that tax. Or if the government charges Divers a tax, then they simply have to pass that on. If they can't pass it on, then they simply go out of business. They shut down, like Gibson's and some of the other big retailers shut down. They just can't make money if they can't stay in business, they can't make money. So taxes are always passed on. You're asking a very strictly structured economic question that is in truth correct.